Hello students, in this English tutorial, we will read and learn a story about generosity. What is generosity? It is the quality of being kind and generous. Before we move ahead to the story, I want to discuss something with you. In this world full of people with different kind of status, different kind of needs, different kind of mental states, we are very likely to come across people who makes mistakes, and some mistakes are punishable. Now tell me, how would you make someone realize his or her mistake? By punishing the person or through kindness? Trust me, if you choose to punish with kindness, the person will feel his or her mistake and might be he will change his life and his lifestyle. So try it out. Today's story is An Unlikely Punishment, which is about kindness. After reading the story, you will be able to read and comprehend, answer questions based on the story. Then comes the vocabulary and the grammar part, where you will be able to identify loan words, use present and past participles, use gerunds in sentences. Now, talking about the origin and the author of the story. The story is an extract from the novel Les Miserables by the great French writer Victor Hugo. The novel centers on its protagonist, Jean Valjean. Okay, protagonist means the male character. Victor Hugo. Victor Marie Hugo was a French poet, novelist, and dramatist of the Romantic movement. Hugo is considered to be one of the greatest and best known French writers. Outside France, his most famous works are the novels Les Miserables, which was composed in 1862, and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which was composed in 1831. Now let's know the basis of Les Miserables. Examining the nature of law and grace, the novel elaborates upon the history of France, the architecture and urban design of Paris, politics, moral philosophy, anti-monarchism, justice, religion, and the types and nature of romantic and familial love. Les Miserables has been popularized through numerous adaptations for film, television, and the stage, including a musical. Now, let's read and understand the story. As I already told you, the novel centers on its protagonist, Jean Valjean, who is imprisoned for stealing bread to feed his sister's hungry children. The novel depicts his long struggle to create a simple life for himself after he is released from prison. In this extract, Jean Valjean spends a night at a bishop's house after coming out of prison. So now, the part that we will read is after Jean Valjean was released from the prison. Valjean awoke as the cathedral clock was striking 2. He was in a state of great mental perturbation. Many thoughts occurred to him, but there was one in particular that constantly returned, overshadowing the rest. It was the thought of the silver on the bishop's table. While Virgil was at the bishop's house, he woke up at 2 a.m. with many thoughts scrambling in his mind. He was very anxious. The most prevalent thought was the thought of the silver lying on the bishop's table. Those silver knives and forks obsessed him. There they were, only a few yards away. They were solid pieces and would fetch at least 200 francs. The ugly thought came and went, and at the same time, unaccountably, he was thinking of something entirely different. One of his fellow prisoners had been a man named Brevet who kept his trousers up with a single brace. The check design of that brace repeatedly occurred to him. On one hand, he was thinking about stealing and selling the silver for at least 200 francs, and on the contrary, on the other hand, the check design of Brevet's brace was flashing in his mind. See the contrast of the two thoughts. He got to his feet and stood listening. The house was quite silent. He picked up his knapsack and got something out of it. It was a short iron bar sharpened to a point at one end. By daylight, it could have been seen to be an ordinary miner's spike. He decided what to do and stood up and took out an ordinary spike from his small bag and went ahead to complete his mission. Here, underline the words protagonist, which means the leading character or one of the major characters in a play, film, novel, etc. Next, cathedral, which means a very large, usually stone building for Christian worship. Bishop, a priest of high rank who is in charge of the priest of lower rank in a particular area. Obsessed, preoccupy or fill the mind of someone continually and to a troubling extent. Note down the meanings or take a screenshot. Next, grasping it in his right hand and holding his breath, Virgil moved stealthily towards the door of the bishop's bedroom. He found it ajar. Virgil moved on into the bedroom and cautiously forward, hearing from the far side of the room the quiet, steady breathing of the bishop. For nearly half an hour the sky had been darkened by cloud. At the moment when Virgil stopped by the bed, the clouds were torn asunder, and moonlight flooding through the tall window fell upon the bishop's face. He was sleeping peacefully. His face wore a look of serenity, hope, and beatitude. The motionless in the shadow, gripping the spike in his hand, Jean Valjean stood gazing in a kind of terror at the old man. All that clearly emerged from his attitude and expression was that he was in a state of strange indecision between death on one hand and salvation on the other, ready to shatter that skull or to kiss that hand. With the weapon in hand, Virgil opened the door of the bishop's bedroom. As the bishop was peacefully asleep, Virgil fought with a strange indecision in his mind on whether to kill the bishop or to attain salvation by not committing the sin. Virgil suddenly moved to the cupboard. The first thing that he saw when he opened the door was a basket of silver. He grabbed it, crossed the room with long strides, re entered the oratory, picked up his stick, opened the window, climbed over the sill, emptied the silver in his knapsack, threw away the basket, and, scrambling like a great cat over the wall, took to his heels. Here, there is a sequence of the actions that Valjean did while stealing and running away with the silver. Note it down, it is very important. When Valjean opened the cupboard, he saw a basket and grabbed it and then emptied all the silver into his bag, threw the basket away, and ran away. Now underline the words cautiously, which means careful about avoiding danger or risk. Serenity, the state of being calm, peaceful, and untroubled. Salvation, a source or means of being saved from committing a sin or evil. And scrambling, which is a verb, means to move or climb quickly but with difficulty, often using your hand to help you. Now, next para. At sunrise, Monseigneur Bienvenu was in his garden. Ma'am Maglier came running out to him in great agitation. Monseigneur, Monseigneur, do you know where the silver basket is? Yes, said the bishop. Thank the Lord. I couldn't think what had happened to it. The bishop has just retrieved the basket from one of the flower beds. He handed it to her, saying, Here you are. But it's empty, she exclaimed. Where is the silver? So, is the silver you are worrying about? Said the bishop. I can't tell you where that is. Heaven save us! It has been stolen. That man who came last night? My burglar ran into the oratory, peered into the alcove, and came running back to her master, who was now bending sadly over a clockria that had been damaged by the basket when it fell. So here we came across a conversation between Ma'am Magloire and Monseigneur Bienville. Who was Monseigneur Bienville? He was a bishop, and now we know that he was also a prince. And also notice the word ma'am. It's MME, which is Madame, Madame in French and Madame in English. Okay, remember the pronunciations Madame in French and Madame in English. So, at the sunrise, Ma'am Magloire came running to the bishop and told him about the theft. She suspected Valjean. The bishop, after a moment's pause, turned his grave eyes on her and said gently, In the first place, was it really ours? Ma'am Magloire stood dumbfounded. After a further silence, the bishop went on, I think I was wrong to keep it so long. It belonged to the poor. And what was that man, if not one of them? Saints alive! Exclaimed Magloire. It's not on my account or Mademoiselle's. But, Monseigneur, what will Monseigneur eat with now? He looked at her in astonishment. There is always pewter. Pewter smells. Well, then wooden forks and spoons. When the bishop said that he gave the silver to Valjean because it was meant for the poor, my Magloire got worried about what the bishop will eat with love, and they finalized to eat with wooden forks and spoons. A few minutes later, he was breakfasting at the table where Jean Valjean had sat the night before and remarking cheerfully to his sister and Ma'am Magloire that no spoon or fork, even wooden ones, was needed for dipping bread into a bowl of milk. As the brother and sister were in the act of rising from the table, a knock sounded on the door, and the bishop called, "Come in." The door opened to disclose a dramatic group. Three men were holding a fourth by the arms and leg. The three were the gendarmes, or the French police force. The fourth was Gilles Valjean. At the breakfast, the moment After the breakfast, the moment Bishop and Ma'am Magloire were about to rise, the doorbell rang, and three French policemen, along with Valjean, entered the room. So, in this page, that is page number 38, underline the words agitation, which means a state of anxiety or nervous excitement, auditory, a small chapel, especially for private worship, and dumbfounded, greatly astonished or amazed. Note down the meanings as always. Now, next paragraph. A sergeant of the gendarmes entered the room and saluted. Monseigneur, he began. At this, Walden raised his head in stupefaction. Monseigneur? He repeated. He is in the curie? Silence, said one of the gendarmes. This is his lordship, the bishop. Monseigneur Bienvenu was meanwhile coming towards them as rapidly as his age allowed. When the gendarmes saluted the bishop, Valjean was a little puzzled, as he thought that the bishop was just a curé or a priest, but he happened to be his lordship the bishop. So, here you are, he cried to Valjean. I am delighted to see you. Have you forgotten that I gave you the candlesticks as well? They are worth a good 200 francs. Did you forget to take them? Monseigneur, said the sergeant, do I understand that this man was telling the truth? When we saw him, he seemed to be on the run. We found his silver in his knapsack and he told you, said the bishop smiling, that it had been given to him by an old priest with whom he stopped the night. I can see how it was. You felt bound to bring him here, but you were mistaken. You mean, said the sergeant, that we can let him go? Certainly. The bishop defends Valjean and says that he had given the silver to him. That's the story that Valjean also told them. Then reminds him to take the silver candlesticks as well. Both the policeman and Valjean were surprised. Now turn to the next page. The gendarmes released Valjean, but this time, said the bishop, you must not forget your candlesticks. He fetched them from the mantelpiece and handed them to Valjean. And now, said the bishop, go in peace. He turned to the gendarmes. Thank you, gentlemen. The gendarmes withdrew. Valjean stayed motionless as though he were on the verge of collapse. The bishop came up to him and said in a low voice, "Do not forget, do not ever forget that you have promised me to use the money to make yourself an honest man." Valjean, who did not recall having made any promise, was silent. The bishop had spoken the words slowly and deliberately. He concluded with solemn emphasis, "Jean Valjean, my brother, you no longer belong to what is evil, but to what is good. I have bought your soul to save it from black thoughts and the spirit of perdition, and I give it to God." The gendarmes let Valjean go. The bishop tells him in a whisper that Valjean has promised him to use this money he gets by selling the silver to make himself into an honest man. Weak with relief, Valjean doesn't remember making this promise. Then the bishop concluded very seriously that he pardoned Valjean so that he doesn't commit any sin and therefore doesn't receive any punishment after his death. He also reminded him that through this act of kindness, the bishop has brought his soul, and so he, that means Valjean, has to repay it by becoming an honest man. Students first underline the words verge, which means be very close, collapse, suddenly fall down, deliberately, which means consciously and intentionally on purpose. Now, students, from this story, what do we understand? I have learned, or I think you all must have learned, that mercy, compassion, and love are treatments for the miseries that all life must endure, right? If you are merciful, if you are compassionate, and if you show your love, then you can change lives. You can make better people. And we have also learned that forgiveness can change a life. Okay? So learn to forgive with kindness and trust me that forgiveness will be the greatest punishment, but it will be helpful for the person who committed the mistake. Okay? I really hope you like the story and you will follow the lesson that you have learned from it. Now, let's summarize. An unlikely punishment is an extract from the novel Les Miserables by the French writer Victor Hugo. In this extract, the protagonist Jean Valjean, who was imprisoned for stealing bread to feed his sister's hungry children, had been released from prison. He spent the night at a bishop's house. Around 2 in the morning, he woke up and was consumed with the thought of the single candlesticks which he could steal and sell for at least 200 francs. So he tiptoed past the sleeping and calm bishop, opened the cupboard, and removed the silver basket. He then threw the silver into his knapsack, the basket in the garden, and ran with it. In the morning, Ma'am Magloire came running to Bishop and told him about the theft. She thinks Valjean is responsible. But Monseigneur Bienvenu, the bishop, said that the basket was in the garden and he gave the silver to Jean Valjean. Just then there is a knock on the door. A couple of French policemen, the gendarmes, are standing with Jean Valjean and a sack full of stolen silver. The bishop defends Valjean and says that he had given the silver to him. That's the story that Valjean has told to the gendarmes too. Then reminds him to take the silver candlesticks as well. Valjean was very surprised. The gendarmes let him go. The bishop tells him in a whisper that Valjean has promised him to use the money he gets from the silver to make himself into a better man. Weak with relief, Valjean doesn't remember making this promise. Okay, so read the story again and again. The pages of the book will be attached in your study material. Now, let's come to the reading comprehension part. First, take the correct options. The one thought that captured Jean Valjean's mind was that of A. Silver on the bishop's table. Students, please note down these in your notebooks, or if you have your book, you can mark it there. No problem. Number 2. Valjean carried the spike to Monseigneur Bienvenu's bedroom to attack the bishop if he woke up. That is number C. Done. This is in page number 40. Next page. When Madame Magloire informed Monseigneur Bienvenu that the silver had been stolen, he said that he should have given it away to the poor a long time ago. That is option B. Number 4. On reading the extract, we may conclude that Monseigneur Bienvenu expected Jean Valjean to steal the silver. Of course, he expected him to steal the silver. That's why he was very cautious and he knew who had stolen it. Right? Next, the extract ends with a sense of hope. Whose hope? The hope of the bishop that Valjean will become an honest man. And might be also that Valjean was thinking about the same, that he can really become an honest man, do some business or some other work with this money that he will earn from the silver. So the answer is B, hope. Students, with this, I am signing off. I hope that you have liked the chapter and have also completed the reading comprehension part. Okay, take the correct options if you have the book in your book or in your notebook. In the next part, you will get the grammar portion of this lesson. Thank you and have a great day.